We do not believe in writing something down one time and filing it and forgetting it.
It's an exercise in futility.
That's right.
The Golding Group Strategic Growth Podcast, formerly known as the Neo Marketing Podcast, offers real-world advice, expert analysis, and smart success strategies for entrepreneurs, investors, decision makers, and business leaders.
Hello and welcome to the Strategic Growth Podcast. My name is Kyle Golding. I'm here with my business partner, Pritchard, the professor, the educator, the military man, the Navy pilot, the author of multiple books. Many things.
So what do you want?
Many things. We're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects today.
Yeah.
Actually, this was the subject of our very first episode. Before the podcast was the Strategic Growth Podcast, it was the Neo Marketing Podcast. Before it was the Neo Marketing Podcast,
yes,
we did a short series of videos and podcasts called Conversations with the Golding Group. For the two of us, much like we are here, we were sitting chatting about different types of conversations. Episode number 1.
Wow.
We talked about BPM, Business Process Management. So you were interviewing me about business process management. One of my favorite things in the world, something I think is extremely valuable for any business. And, of course, that was hundreds of episodes ago.
It's amazing how fast it goes.
We've touched on it a few times, and we've mixed it in with some other things as well. But today I want to focus solely on business process management, also called BPM.
Yep.
I like to tell the joke because BPM is also beats per minute. DJs use BPM. So BPM is not just for DJs.
Right.
That's how I like to define it off. But business process management, specifically, it's very important for business. Yes, we're going to get deep into what constitutes a process, and then anything that you want to do well with, you need to manage or business process management.
Right. Exactly.
So right off the bat, though, I'm going to tell you that we, as a group, the Golding Group, have our own specific definition. There's dictionary definitions of BPM or business process management, but we have our specific one we think makes more sense for business in 2022. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to read you that. We're going to break down that conversation a little bit, and I'm going to go deep into the process, the theory and the process behind it. I probably can't get to the whole thing today. Maybe end up holding over some of the execution into a second episode, and might even go a third episode on really fine-tuning and really just turbocharging your business through business process management. So
that's a deep dive, buddy.
Let's see how much we can knock out today. So here's the definition, the Golding Group definition.
Strap in, y'all.
Business process management, also known as BPM, is a strategic approach to aligning company workflow, procedures, communication, and human assets, sometimes called talent, to create the most effective, efficient, and manageable system for sustainable business growth and longevity.
Okay, lots of things to parse out there.
Yes, because we poured over every word in that conversation, right? So, first of all, strategic approach.
Strategic, right.
We've defined many times in this podcast how you get to strategy. Setting your goals, creating objectives, and then when you know what you're trying to achieve, you can set your strategy or be strategic.
Right.
Being strategic is a smart, informed way of executing and trying to achieve things, as opposed to just doing random stuff and hoping it works.
Right. It's throwing spaghetti against the wall, see if it sticks.
That is right. And strategic approach, I think, is the exact right term here because it is an approach. It's the way you approach how you manage your business and make decisions within your business. Not just you at the top, the CEO or the top individual, the owner.
Everybody on down the chain.
Exactly. Absolutely. Everyone in that chain.
Absolutely.
That's why the second piece is aligning company workflow.
Right. Yeah.
Everything should be moving in the right direction, right?
Well, you're going to have a workflow.
Yes.
One way or the other.
Or you won't get anything accomplished. You'll be out of business real quick.
But I think what's important here, that parsing that out separately, is that you can be strategic and not have the right workflow.
Correct.
But the workflow needs to match up with what you're trying to accomplish.
It needs to be highly aligned.
Yes.
To avoid redundancy.
Right.
Avoid inefficiencies, and we'll talk about efficiency, effectiveness in a minute.
Missed opportunities.
And that happens when everyone in the workflow, again, top to bottom and bottom up to top, this goes both ways, it's a two-way conversation, when every one of them is invested in the concept of business process management, of understanding everything can be more effective and more efficient.
Yeah.
That if you can make your job easier, not because it's easier on you,
Right.
but because it's more efficient for the company, it makes it faster, makes it the quality goes up, etc., or less people
Right.
needed to do a job, which lowers cost.
Right.
If everyone in the process, in the workflow, approaches it that way, not just get my work done today, or not
Right.
just not make my boss mad at me,
Right.
but how do we make riveting rivets or bending steel or writing press releases, whatever it is you do, as efficient as possible?
Right.
Not limiting redundancies again and
Right.
making things as effective as possible. That happens when everyone in the workflow understands that their ideas, their input, and their part of the process is essential.
There's probably half a dozen podcasts just right there in that
Right,
part of the
exactly, right.
conversation. I think, it reminds me of the Army's got a lot of good things. I spent 10 years in the joint world where all the services are represented in one headquarters. And some of the things, not so much. But in terms of what they call commander's intent, it makes a big difference because then everybody below the commander can align their efforts with what the commander's intent is,
Right.
which is basically your strategy, the strategy of the organization. And so, I mean, there's culture we could talk about in that little nugget. There's resources and the alignment of personnel.
Right.
So yeah, talent, absolutely.
Exactly.
That's some good stuff right there.
Yes. Now that's followed up. Workflows followed up with procedures.
Yeah.
And we're going to break down procedures. There's multiple things that make up a procedure, and a procedure is part of an overall process
Right.
and system and systemization. We'll explain that deeper
Right.
in a future part of this.
Kind of like your checklist, but we'll talk about that.
But it also
in a
follows
moment.
up with communication.
Yeah, absolutely.
No point. You can't say here's how things are if you don't communicate
That's
that. And
exactly
again,
right.
up the channel, down the channel,
And
all
down
the way
the
through the
channel.
organization,
You bet.
and in human assets or talents.
Right.
Again, making sure not just that you have people in place, but that people have a talent or an aptitude or skills for the job that they're doing.
Well, and understanding where they fit into the bigger picture too.
Yes.
Why is my job important to this? Well, your job's important because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have steps 3, 4, and 5.
Exactly. You're part of the process, and it's also why their input and their insights and the communication thereof
Right.
is also important because it keeps them engaged.
Absolutely.
And it makes the process more efficient.
And if you're a smart leader, you're listening and you're making efficiencies.
Yes.
And changes where it's appropriate.
Yeah, like who knows more about setting rivets than the riveter?
Than the riveter. That's exactly right.
So don't let the C-suite tell the riveter it needs 7 steps when the riveter says you only need 5.
Right, that's right. It's the old leadership telling people how to suck eggs, and that never works.
That's right. I love that description, how to suck eggs. It's like, well, I don't want to suck an egg. That sounds
not
weird.
that end. Suck on this end, right? Yeah, whatever.
So with all that in place, you create a most effective, efficient, and manageable system.
Yeah.
Not just pieces, but a system. And obviously, folks, I don't have to explain to you what efficient, effective, and manageable, the benefits of that, right?
Well, you shouldn't have to.
I shouldn't have to. If I have, we're already over your head on this podcast, so I have to explain that to you 8 minutes in. But I will tell you this now. Actually, the last couple of words for me are the most important of this whole sentence.
Okay.
Sustainable business growth and longevity.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Again, sustainable.
Sustainable.
We don't want to sell something once.
Right.
We want to have sustainable business. We want to do well every day.
Right.
We want to build on past successes to create better, bigger successes and bigger opportunities because we build sustainable business.
Right.
Not just one time, not just flash in the pan. We don't want to go viral.
Right.
Don't go viral. Be sustainable.
Be sustainable.
Sustainable businesses last 100 years. Viral flash in the pans last 30 seconds, and you probably can only capitalize on 1% of the potential.
Right, if that.
Right. Business growth and longevity.
Yep.
I've said many times on this podcast, but I'll say it again because I think it's important. It's one of the key factors in my thought process. A business needs to always be growing.
Yeah.
If you're not growing, least you're stagnant. If worse, you're contracting or you're moving in the right direction. You're backsliding, etc. However you want to describe it. If you're not moving up, if you're not growing, if you're not doing better, if you're not adding to the business every day because of the lessons that you learned yesterday and the day before and the day before, if you're not growing in that way, then you are stagnant or backsliding.
Well, and there's lots of research that says that the learning organization is the successful organization.
Right.
And when we talk crisis communications from this Ulmer, Seeger, SellNow perspective, organizational learning is absolutely key.
Yeah. And in longevity, it goes back to sustainability, longevity again. We're not trying to help you build a business that'll last for 2 years. We're not trying to help you create a marketing campaign that will sell something one time.
Right.
Sustainability and longevity. Because the more longevity you build into the business, the more structure you create, more adherence to the business process management, the more that you can predict and manage and organize and even bank on how you move forward in the future, as opposed to hoping that it works out. Because you know what they say about hope as a strategy?
Yeah, it ain't.
It's a bad strategy. So that is our definition. We've tweaked a little bit the definition that comes from, the dictionary definition and American Marketing Association and a few other Harvard Business, et cetera. They all have variations of that. That's the one that we like to have a conversation with our clients and here on the podcast.
Well,
so
it makes sense. It's a little bit linear, but that's okay.
Yes.
Because it allows us to step back and look and see how each of those particular parts of the definition stack on each other.
That's right. Because within itself, that definition is a system.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And it allows you to focus on all of the processes necessary for day-to-day operations so that everyone, not just business managers, not just the top people, not just the C-suite, but everyone can make better decisions.
Absolutely.
And that goes to empowered employees. That goes to protocols over plans.
Right.
So business process management sounds like something you write down and put on a shelf, like a business plan.
No,
we don't believe in that.
Nope.
We do not believe in writing something down one time and filing it and forgetting it.
It's an exercise in futility.
That's right. But active management and empowerment, and it goes deeper into corporate culture, and that's why communication is so important.
Right.
But empowering everyone in the organization to be the best that they can be in their role every single day in the day-to-day operations, all of that small stuff, all of the small mistakes you can fix, all of the small upgrades you can make, all of the adjustments that you can make in every scenario, from manufacturing, distribution, logistics, marketing, but also sales, even accounting and leadership.
Right.
If everyone has better communication, better effectiveness, efficiency, and are better connected to each other in a system, then the opportunity for success goes way, way, way up.
Way up.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it starts with the day-to-day operations.
Yep.
To manage your business for better outcomes. That's all you're trying to do.
Right.
You're not going to reinvent the wheel every day. In fact, you're not going to reinvent the wheel every 5 or 10 years. You're going to, there's radical disruption of industries come along rarely, every so often. That's why we call them unicorns, right? Is because they're so rare. So you're not trying to reinvent the wheel every single day, but you are trying to make that wheel slightly smoother every single day. And then, of course, we all know how business happens, right? As soon as you get your process as max efficiency, well, something changes.
Right. Exactly.
Technology, legal, competition, labor, inflation,
legislation,
World War III, whatever it is. Things influence from the outside, things we have no control over, influence us, and we have to be able to react to that. Now, would you rather have to spin up a process of reacting, or would you rather have that already baked into every single thing you already do?
It's a lot easier if it's baked in.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
It's not a major upheaval of your system,
right?
More of a just double down, like, hey, we have something that is out of the ordinary. Let's use the systems we already in place, our business process management, to make that adjustment to the fact that one of our competitors just got an infusion of cash and they're coming right at us.
Right.
Or just because maybe a law changed.
Right.
Or maybe a new piece of technology, whether it's our technology head-to-head with theirs or the way we do our business. There's a new machine that you can put on your assembly line that affects, and your competitors have it, and they've lowered their cost or increased their speed.
Right.
Well, how do you react to that? Well, if you have a system that already reacts, you can just simply
You're
put
already
some
on it.
additional focus
That's
into
exactly
it.
right.
That's
You're
right.
already on it. You're paying attention to it even as it's happening.
That's right. So all of the departments across the company, typically large companies are built into departments: production, distribution, logistics, marketing, sales, accounting, et cetera, right?
Right.
Every single one of them has business process management, has systems. They have rules, processes, and systems within their departments.
Yep.
And then each one of them work collectively, whether they're small groups, large groups, and then the business as a whole. And that's where the management or leadership team's responsibility is creating the entire thing where everything is connected. People talk about silos.
Right.
And silos are as you begin, everything doesn't have to be connected at all times. There's a beginning and an end. The beginning things don't have to be connected, but it's the further they get into the process, into the systems, the more they have to connect and relate and communicate to every other department within an industry. That overall approach is also BPM.
Well, and I do think I'm going to push back a little bit on this, that I think you need to keep. Oh, shoot, I forgot. I lost my thought.
You thought you were going to push back
Thought I
on
was
me, but
gonna
you knew I was right.
Well, I wanted to tweak you a little bit on one.
I'm always
point,
trying to find ways to get Pritch to disagree with me in this podcast, and then he had one, and then he lost
I forgot it. Yeah, sorry, head cold.
It's okay, no worries. So I said earlier the word processes,
Right.
and I want to break down the word processes because it sounds like a big thing, and it kind of is. But when you break things down into small little chunks, they become a lot more manageable, right? So processes typically start out as rules.
Right.
And I love the assembly line kind of example for things like this when discussing business process management. So the rules are, don't stick your hand in the machine.
Right.
The rules are the first person that comes in the morning turns on the lights, turns on the machines, puts the pot of coffee on.
Right.
At the end of the shift, the rule is you have to clean your machine, or you have to turn the power off, or you have to put your tools away.
Right.
Or a rule is you have to wear your safety glasses, or you have to wear the right boots, and
Right.
you have to have certain many hours of training before you can, et cetera, et cetera. These are all just rules. But as you get a collection of rules, as you come in the morning, you turn the lights on, you put the coffee pot on, you fire the machines up, you get the tools into place, you put your safety equipment on, and then you start using the machine.
Right.
Well, now that is a process.
That's a process.
A collection of rules create processes. Processes are the organization of rules. And sometimes rules are, hey, don't do this.
Right. Don't stick your
'cause it's
finger in the light
because it's a
socket.
waste of time or effort. And sometimes it's to keep all your
dangerous.
digits intact,
Right.
or
Exactly.
to keep. But also rules are to run maximum efficiency. Don't use this type of material versus this one, and this tool works better than this tool. And it's all about things we've learned along the way. It goes back to communicating those small steps. If it takes 7 steps, can we do it in 6 or 5? And again, the riveter knows more about setting rivets than anyone else.
Or is there a way that we can reorganize the steps to make them
That's
more
right.
efficient?
That's why a focus on process is more important than rules, because rules are do this, don't do that.
Right.
But if the operator, if the employee, if the person involved focuses on that's the rule. Now, again, safety rules, don't monkey with safety rules.
Right.
But how you go about step 1, step 2, step 3, sometimes step 3 and step 2 can be transposed because, hey, it's more, I have to walk past this twice instead of once, or et cetera.
Right.
So rules can be changed. Some can. Don't stick your finger in the machine is a rule you should never try to monkey with.
Right.
But if you're focused on the process of how step 1 goes to step 2 and step 3 and step 4, and can I skip one? Can I go ahead? It doesn't break any rules if you really do that. If you're focused on process, then you adhere to the rules that are necessary, but you adjust and change, maybe even eliminate or add rules that can be adjusted.
Right.
So process allows you to have rules, but also do better with the rules.
Right.
And it's simple. We call them rules, but they're steps, they're guidelines, there's actions, operations, there are procedures, there's practices, best practices, right? That goes back to just understanding what it is you're doing and maximizing the potential of it.
I think of it in terms of checklist. I remember early in my naval aviation days, my instructor pilot taught us to start at the back left of the panel and go all the way around to the back right panel, and so that you didn't miss anything.
There you go.
And
it's important in an airplane.
It was, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you break those habit patterns, you make mistakes.
That's
so
right.
I see them as checklists in that regard. But yeah, a process and rules are there not just to keep you safe, but to keep the process smooth
when you understand the process, not just your actions, starting from left to right, or how you hold the tool or things like that, but also things like the tools themselves. Sometimes you use a tool off a shelf and you say, it's heavier than it needs to be, or it's not shaped in the right way. Maybe you need to make your own tool or find a different tool. Or use a tool versus using your hand. And skills. It's possible that when someone starts the job, their first day on the job, they don't have the skills necessary to run in a machine or do the process. Again, write a social media post or a press release, etc. If they don't have the skills necessary to complete the task, it's the responsibility of leadership to recognize that and provide the training necessary so they have the skills, the tools, and they understand the rules. And then that comes from communication. Every bit of that comes from the communication required to fill the role in the business.
Yep, absolutely.
That's why that word keeps coming up. It was part of our definition, and it's so essential. And that's what, for me, what makes it really a process. When it goes from a set of rules or our collection of things to do or not do, but when it becomes a process and becomes an improvement process, is communication. Again, top down, bottom up. Hey, here's how I want you to do it, and here's why. Well, here's why that's a good idea, or here's why that's a bad idea, and we meet somewhere in the middle, and we can only have that conversation if we're communicating with each other.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, processes, the collection of these rules, are the what, when, where, why, and how of every function within a business. And then how the business works itself, the who, what, when, where, and how, all comes from processes. So processes, once you have a collection of processes, we had collection of rules that become processes. You have a collection of processes, you develop systems. And systems mean, yes, that's the process, the rules and process for machine A, but it also applies for machine B. It also applies for the shipping dock. It also applies for the accounting department, because we've learned to go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. So rules, processes, enough processes creates a system. That's how everything works together as a total business process management. That's why BPM is so important. It's a highly focused execution to maximize the potential for business strategy, assets, and structure through continual improvement. That's the key there. Continual improvement, right? The person doing the job, closest to the job, having their hands on it, if you will, every day, has the most opportunity to improve. To better the execution, to create efficiency and effectiveness, and that's the key of the game. It's always a small, we said don't reinvent the wheel, make it just a little bit smoother every day. Changes. That only works if they're engaged in the actual process. If every person, top down, bottom up, is engaged, empowered, they have protocols, they know how to communicate to the people who make the decisions for them and for their role and for the job in order to be able to express themselves. Here's a better idea. Here's a better way. Here's some efficiency we can create. Now, of course, that has to be balanced or managed. That's why management's part of it. With best practices, lessons learned, maybe even legal or some other technical issues as well. But the key in business process management is with everyone in the organization has bought into it. When they make those suggestions, hey, boss, I think we could do this a little bit better. We're 5 steps down to 4 steps, right? When that feedback is received, if the decision is made, we're going ahead, of course, you want to communicate your idea worked. Thank you so much. Provide some more in the future. But if we're not moving ahead, why we made the decision not to? And again, there's other limitations. Maybe they're not aware of or something else. Maybe it drives the cost, et cetera. But communicating not just that you're the green light or red light, but why behind it will continue to empower them and engage them to continue to bring you the better idea. Because what's the exact opposite of that, right? People who don't want to come to work and definitely don't pipe up when there's efficiency to be had because they know they're going to be met with just shut up and do your job.
Maybe means no, which is what my kids used to say.
You don't want to create that process, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the new phenomena of quiet quitting.
Yeah, I had that in my notes as something that we could do on the podcast, and at some point I think we probably will, because I saw the original sort of conversation about it. I hated that term, and then I read it like, okay, doing the minimum and all those things. Was really, really agitated by that. Now a lot of people are trying to redefine that a little bit, and so we'll kind of see how that shakes out. But that's in my notes of a potential something we can have a conversation with in the future for sure.
I think it's been around for a long time. It's just been called different things.
Clock watching.
It's probably,
doing the minimum and clock watching and not caring about your job.
Anticipatory behavior as you get closer to quitting time.
Yeah, exactly. And which is the exact opposite of corporate culture. Like you're trying to make things as well as possible. Good corporate culture, positive corporate culture.
Right.
And BPM and corporate culture, they go hand in hand. They really do actively go together. In fact, I kind of feel like you can't create a real corporate culture. You may be in a really small, 2-man operation, 4-person shop. But if you get more than 10 people in an organization, it's going to be really hard to create a solid rock star corporate culture without the concepts of BPM, of business process management, continual improvement, continual education, of that again, top down, bottom up. Every bit of it is constantly making your business better, which helps your business grow. We said earlier, if you're not growing, you're going in the wrong direction.
Right.
So every bit of this moves you forward. Now, it takes leadership to drive that. Any process, any system has to come from leadership. It has to be buy-in from them. And then the honesty, the communication from the other parts of the organization in order to make it truly effective and efficient.
Yep.
But if you can achieve these things, then the ability to move your organization as needed, because business is all about reacting to change, is easy. We said earlier, you don't have to worry about disruption when you're already working this process. Right. That's why it's so important. That's why it's so essential. That's why I wanted to have this deep conversation today. And I'm only about a third into the conversation I want to have.
All right.
But, we're up against the clock here.
Sure.
So we're going to break that into a couple of other pieces. Then maybe eventually we'll come back to quitting. I have my plenty of thoughts on that.
Yeah, buddy.
Anyways, but instead, if you get people engaged in their job, if they feel valued, if they feel heard, and you communicate with them openly, then corporate culture is easy. There you go. But I think if you're committed to this type of excellence, if committed to being as efficient as possible and cross the board communication, et cetera, if you're committed to all those things and not just saying it, but doing it, then all of that does lend you to being in the right place with the right mindset and the empowerment of everyone in the organization to feed into the corporate culture you're looking for.
Yeah, darn right.
So it's many things. It's business, it's effective, it's efficient, it's corporate culture, which attracts and retains employees. It affects everything you do.
Right.
That's why BPM is so important. That's why we started the entire series of podcasts and videos back in the day with BPM. Right. We're revisiting it again. We're going to break this into multiple episodes because it's that dang important.
Darn right. Bam, there it is.
There you go, folks. Appreciate you guys hanging on for the full conversation today. Look forward to the continuation of the BPM process on a future episode, along with all the other great insights we bring you on the Strategic Growth Podcast. We appreciate you listening. We would love for you to subscribe. We would absolutely love comments and reviews as well. We would appreciate that so much. We'll be back again in 2 weeks for a new episode. Until then, good luck.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to the Golding Group Strategic Growth Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell a friend, leave a review, and engage with us on social media. To contact us, please visit thegoldinggroup.com.